Hello everyone and welcome to this week's episode of the Future Film Podcast. This is your host here, Robert Fitzhugh. Very excited to introduce our next guest. A very interesting and entertaining chat with Mr. Carl Mullan. If people aren't familiar with Carl is a presenter on 2FM. He also has a show currently on the RTE REAL Player called Go Outside and Play, which is absolutely phenomenal. And he has a wonderful vlog, what am I talking about? The days we're in. And this is a conversation I had with Carl that was very entertaining and inspirational. And if you're looking for an excuse to get out and make something, this chat is the chat that is going to make you get up off the couch and do it. Very, very entertaining, very interesting guy. I had a great time having the chat and I hope you have a great time listening to it. But before we get to that, we, believe it or not, have a sponsor for the podcast. We have a sponsor. Our sponsor is Dream Grip. Dream Grip is your brand for smart filmmaking solutions. With Dream Grip, anyone can film like a pro, be it a filmmaker, a vlogger, or just if you want to broadcast in the comfort of your own home. The great thing about Dream Grip is how simple it is to use. All the accessories don't require you to have any previous kind of video or filmmaking experience. The best part is that you can mix and match and make the kind of shooting setup you want. So if you imagine a bit like Lego, you can take pieces from different rigs, add it together to create something that's just right for you. To celebrate the 2020 festival, which if you're listening to this will be if you're listening to this on Friday, will be tomorrow, the 25th of January. They are offering a 15% discount on all their products for the duration of the festival. So that's till the 28th of January. All you have to do is use the promo code DSFF2020 in their Amazon store, and you'll get 15% discount on all their products. So get shooting, guys, and remember, Dream Grip is your brand for smart filming solutions. Now on with the chat. Yeah, Carl, thanks very much for joining me on the show. How are you?
Yeah, very good. Thanks.
The episode, sorry.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
no worries.
Well, we're in a radio studio. So
yeah, the minute I saw Mike live, I was like, thanks for joining me on the show. And over to you for the weather. No, thanks very much for having me on. Sorry, because we were having, just before we get into it, and when we started talking about it, we were having a conversation just quickly there about phones, and just was saying about the ecosystem that Apple kind of screws you into. It's torturous to drag you into that world, and the quality. I think the quality of the phone is worth it to a degree. I mean, the minute I started shooting on my iPhone 11 versus my other phone, I was like, everything's amazing. Using, LumaFusion, LumaTouch, using them is leaps and bounds ahead of everything else. But at the same time, I spent a lot of money on the phone, and within 2 days I was like, now I have to spend a lot of money on a laptop. Yeah. And it's brutal.
That's the thing with the whole Apple ecosystem, I find. Like, if you're into it, like, you are going to have the most seamless, wonderful experience. But the problem is if you can't half buy into it. Like, no. I got an iPhone a few years ago. I was always traditionally Android, and then I got an iPhone because I was like, I'm going to try this out. And I had it for a couple of years, and I was just sick of not being able to, like, quickly send a photo from my phone across to another app, or if you have like a normal laptop, like getting things off an iPhone is like trying to crack the Enigma code. They really don't make it easy. And
I genuinely felt that I was being punished.
Yeah.
Like, you were like, you've only put one toe in the water unless you're going to dive in. Yeah. And then suddenly you're like, well, you don't have enough storage. I got to pay for more storage. I got to start paying for stuff. So there's a down and kind of dirty, scruffy thing with Android where you can kind of link stuff together and make it work for you. But with Apple, it's all in. And I use both, and I find that I now there's a line in the middle, and my Android is just for social media stuff.
Okay.
And I don't really use it for anything else other than that. Like,
I feel like I'm kind of Android probably suits me because I'm quite scatty and I'm not very organised. And I think the fact that Android kind of just lets me be like, yeah, whatever, I can throw this onto this app, or I can, get this from somewhere else at a different stage. Whereas like with iPhone, I know a lot of people with iPhones, and if you know how to get the most out of it, like, they're unbeatable. But I'm just not organised enough.
Well, this is what I'm going to talk to you about, because you seem, with the stuff that you do, your videos, you seem more organised, and that's what I want to talk to you about, because my phones are littered with abandoned vlogs and stuff like that that I put a lot of effort into. Like, I walked the dog. I shot a video where I was walking the dog, and it's 6 different walks edited together over the course of 3 weeks. I can't use it now because I started when he was a puppy and he's full grown. It doesn't make any sense. But it's all this stuff where I'll do this, I'll do that, I'll add this in. So that was one of the things that was really interesting, because I know from watching your stuff, and from particularly, we'll get to the show on the Real Player later on, Go Outside and Play, but the organisation, because actually, I was watching your videos with my girlfriend, and I was saying, like, he would have had to get off his bike, go up the road, record that cycle on the corner. So I was just curious, like, you set yourself a goal of doing more kind of vlogs and doing more kind of stuff, but they seem to be incredibly complex. How much planning goes into that?
Well, funny enough, actually, probably I probably created a lot more work for myself when I decided. It was so funny, right? Because I started doing my job in radio, and I thought radio, and I'd always been interested in photos and videos and technology and all of that, but I'd never thought of myself as like getting into like any form of video content. And then one day, I, for whatever reason, came across a Casey Neistat vlog on YouTube. You know when you're going through the black hole on YouTube?
Yeah.
I was looking at videos of boats crashing.
You're in the weeds,
exactly, like, you know. And
parrots fighting with donkeys.
Exactly.
You know, and you're like,
so entertaining. It really is.
that parrot really does. He's good.
What an age we live in. Or that guy when he punches the kangaroo. I mean, just unbelievable. But I came across a video of Casey Neistat, and I don't know what it was, but I was just transfixed with it, because I couldn't believe that someone could tell a story so well and visually make it so entertaining. Yet, like, if you watch a lot of Casey Neistat vlogs, a lot of the time there's no story. It's nothing massively interesting.
Anything, yeah. It's just cut together in a way that...
Yeah, and he just manages to make a story out of almost nothing. And I got really fascinated with this. So I decided, I want to start a vlog. So of course I, you know, got myself a camera, and, you know, I got myself a microphone, and I had the laptop, and I kind of just decided, right, okay, let's give this a go. But when I say about creating more work for myself, I, at the very beginning anyway, was like, I'm just going to start recording everything that goes on. And then you kind of very quickly realize when it comes to editing, you're like going, well, I do need to start a middle and an end. And if you don't have that, then it makes it really hard, because you have to start kind of finding, okay, where's my start, where's my middle, where's my end.
Or you inevitably end up going out and shooting more footage to turn that into your start, middle and end.
And that happened to me a few times, and I kind of feel like what I love about like online nowadays and, you know, vlogging is that, like, a lot of the time it feels very organic, and I think you don't want to lose that. You don't. Yeah. The reason why people love watching a vlog is because it doesn't look like the super polished, you know, production that you see on TV. It feels more authentic, but you also need to get that fine balance between, like, you knowing what your plan is in your head. And I suppose I did 9 videos over the course of a few weeks, and by the time it came around to the last one, I was like, okay, before I even went out, it was like, even if I had a lot of times for me, it's literally having, like, you know, a page going, okay, this is where this is going.
Like, so to use an example, like, you did a video about the Beast from the East, right?
Yes.
Did you hear there was a storm coming and say, I'm going to do a video? Or
I was only thinking about this recently enough. The timing of that Beast from the East was unbelievable, because I had literally just decided I wanted to start vlogging, and actually looking back now, I'm so glad I was, because it was this, like, really significant national event.
Yeah.
And I just so happened to have been interested in vlogging at the time, so I managed to capture all of it. But say now with the Beast from the East, even, that was towards the start of it, and I literally filmed everything, and it meant, even from a practical point of view, ingesting that footage and watching it all through, it takes so long,
and then deciding what's of value from it is a nightmare.
Yeah, like, I've loads of stuff from that video, like, that I never ended up using. So that was another classic case of probably overshooting, but then I suppose I was lucky in that I was able to kind of salvage it in the edit and make something of it.
And then you go back and you film your dialogue, which is the spine that kind of goes through it, and then you can kind of mix and match. But you've got these really cool edits where you're watching the footage on the computer in the edit bay, and then it comes out, and it feels like that's something that you've pre-thought ahead, and you're like, kind of, oh, this is a cool transition. And I was like, did he plan this all out? It seems like it's meticulously constructed,
and I would love to say that it was, but it really wasn't. Like, I mean, and especially say with the, and that's where it comes to the importance of having kind of a start, a middle and an end, because with that Beast from the East video, it was kind of, I had all of this footage, and then it was like, but hang on, I've no way of linking it all together. And that's why I was like, well, how do I go about this? And then that was where I just was like, okay, well, I'm going to literally, like, kind of jump in and out of it, where I'm showing the footage, kind of me editing the footage, and it's me doing a bit of a narration as to, like, and then this happened, and then this, we went to here. And that's kind of the beauty as well of online video making. There's no rules really.
Yeah, and that's I agree. There's no everything goes out the window, and it becomes more about kind of making something that's just engaging. And like with people's attention spans being so poor, like your stuff is like could be up of north of 10 minutes, and it's 10 minutes that flies by, which is unfortunate because you have to kind of construct in a way that's like cut.
Yeah,
but it makes it very, very engaging, but it's a lot of work on the back end, I would imagine, to have to kind of assemble all this stuff.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. And I suppose, like, looking back on it, like, like most people, I would be very critical of myself. And when I was doing all of that, I was kind of constantly comparing myself to all of these creators that you see online, like the Dan Mace, who's incredible, or the Casey Neistats, or the Peter McKinnons. And you're looking at their stuff going, oh my God, people are going to look at this and think I'm such an amateur. Because I was making it up as I went along. Yeah. And a lot of the times, like...
Which they probably were as well.
And that's the thing that I've started to learn.
Yeah.
Everyone's making it up.
Yeah.
Everyone's making it up as they go along. No one actually... You can have a general idea of what you want something to be or what you want to do. But, like... A lot of the time you're finding it all out as you go, and that's why this year I definitely want to do another, I suppose I'll call it a season of the vlog, because I learned so much doing it. And I kind of, the reason why I would like to do it again this year is because I've learned that you do need to have even a general idea of your start, your middle and your end, and like loads of things can happen in between,
and that might change, and your end might change. But it's like a documentary almost, where you start out with a bunch of footage, but you have an idea, and maybe that footage will change over time, and you'll end up with something totally different.
Yeah.
But like, how many, like, you've done, how many so far have you done for your...
In terms of my own vlog, I did like 9 videos on YouTube, and then I kind of funnily enough, it ended up, I started vlogging myself outside of work, and it actually led then to me getting a job in RTE as a content creator. People saw it, and they were setting up a new section in RTE called The Lab, which is all about online content creation for young people, and they said, we think you'd be really good for this. So me just doing something as a hobby ended up actually, you know, turning me in a very different direction in my career. So it was very worthwhile.
And it's funny because I always find that sometimes people set out to be like, I'm going to become successful at this by doing this, and inevitably it's the people who really shine at it, or the people are like, well, I just really love doing it, and I gave it a shot, and it led from one thing to the other. Like,
and and I was kind of I don't think I even realised it until probably a year afterwards. You know, sometimes you just get caught up in life and things are happening, and then I kind of stopped and I was like, wow, I went like in the space of a year to recording a vlog on my camera, not really knowing what I was doing, to like recording a mini player series for RTE, and I kind of, that's what the point I was like, wow, actually that really led to something, you know. But I would love to do more of it, but it takes time, and I haven't really had the time. So most of my kind of personal, like, kind of creation at the moment is through the likes of Instagram, because it's so short and it's very, very easy. But I do love that, like, kind of more crafted stuff as well.
Yeah, because that's what I was curious about, because when you that's why I was curious about your planning, because say, if you use the Beast and the East again, where do you draw the line between, I can just put all this on Instagram and do small snippet videos, or I can, you know, record it specifically for, I'm using this material specifically for a blog? Because the temptation is just to be like, I'm in my car, I'll just record 15 seconds.
Yeah, that's, to be honest with you as well, a problem that I really have, is that, like, you might go out to do something. Say if I go out, about a month ago, I decided to go out and film I just had this hankering to go and try and get a shot of the sunrise with the drone up by Loch Tay in the Wicklow Mountains. It's just a gorgeous spot. I had a day off and I was like, you know what, this will be great. And it's great as well at this time of year as well, because the sunrise is so late in the day. So I decided, right, I'll go up to Wicklow Mountains and I'll try and get a shot of the sunrise. But then the problem is, then the temptation is, oh, well, I could, you know, maybe do a few bits for Instagram with this. And then all of a sudden, something that probably should take you an hour takes you 2 or 3, and then it's not even the, like, what I tend to do as well is when I'm out, I'll be like, okay, I'll record it on my phone and then I'll just worry about it later on, and then I'll put it up. But then you get home and you spend like 2 hours going through the stuff and
fiddling through it. Like, I'd be a devil for, like, I'll just recording random footage on the off chance that I can use it somewhere down the line. So even if my dog does something cute, I'd be like, because I'm still in my mind, I'm still going to finish this mammoth vlog that so I'll just record them and I'll use it somewhere else, and all I'm doing is stockpiling footage, which is just making it less likely that I will put it together into something, because I'm like, well, that's just more editing.
It's such a huge task and to go through all of it.
But no, it's just it's but I'd imagine that once you start doing it, Because that's what a lot of people I talk to, like, a lot of people I talk to would share the same sentiment where they're like, oh, you know, I don't want to do it because it'll look crap or it won't be as good as such and such, and people will think it's like a copy or whatever. But again, the people that you're in your circle are generally the people you're talking to, not necessarily the world, like say Casey Neistat. So it's important to kind of get out and just do it. And even if it is garbage by your perspective, chances are somebody else can be like, that's amazing.
A lot of the time as well, I find you might do something and really think it's probably a really inherently Irish thing, but like we're very self-deprecating, and you know, you might do something, and I remember like when I was putting out the videos, like making the vlogs, I was like, you know, they're grand, but like I suppose if I'm learning something, then it's worthwhile. But now I look back on them, like I'm actually quite happy with them, like technically, and you know, of course there's things I'd like to improve, but I'm like, I'm actually pretty proud of them. Like I'm pretty happy looking back at them, and they're a nice thing to have. But like I learned so much, but actually looking back, you're going, actually they weren't as bad as I thought at the time.
No, and I mean, like, so you know your intro one that you first did, which is about you, like that, even technically you can see you've come on in terms of the type of video you're shooting, where you're shooting it, how you're shooting, the quicker, the faster the edits, linking it with music and stuff like that. But the first one you did is you might look at it and go, well, that's not as good as the other ones, but to me I was like, well, that's incredible. Like,
okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, I know. And I was only paid, that's €10 when you just slide
you.
across the
Absolutely.
table. No, it's incredible.
Do you have Revolut?
I do actually. I've made sure I've covered all bases as well. I actually have a swipe card machine here just in case. No, but it's just incredible that it's just the way, I suppose it's the Irish thing as well, but I suppose it's for people who make anything. They look at everything and they think it's garbage. And then they're like, well, and then you come to a point, the real debilitating thing is if you spend a lot of time in it and then you don't want to show it to anyone.
Yes.
And you're like, oh, it's so bad. And then somebody else won't see half the stuff you see. I always use this example. Like the first thing I ever did was a short film I made, and it was a time travel movie, and it was my opus. Do you know what I mean? And I sat down and I wrote, shot, edited, did the catering, did everything, right? It took me a year, and when it was finished, I didn't want to show it to anyone.
Okay.
And people had worked on it with me, and I sat on it for a year, and it was like 20 minutes long, and it's no dialogue, and I thought, this is, in my mind, it was genius, but no one will understand it. You know, you'll never get it. And then about 4 years later, or 5 years later, I found it, and I was like looking at it from a different perspective, and I was like, well, there's some nice shots here. So I went in, and at the time that I made it, I was 20 minutes, I said to the camp, there's no way I can spare anything out of that. But I suppose with the mindset and the way people are consuming stuff, I got it down to 3.5 minutes, and I could cut another minute out of that. But I suppose, and now I look at it and I go, it's all right, like, do you know what I mean? Because I've made other stuff since. So, I mean, there's value to that. I remember I learned so much on that.
There's also as well, sometimes there's a real problem with becoming too close to something, and like I often would do that. I might be editing something and I'm like, you know, I'm actually too close to this now, and I will just move on to something completely different, because you just need a bit of distance, because you can come back at it with a completely different perspective. Because say, for example, you know, you might have a shot in something and you associate the fact that, like, you know, you had to get up at 5 a.m. to get this shot, and it took you X amount of time, you were freezing while you were doing it. But it might not be a great shot, but because you have that emotional connection to it, you feel like, oh, it has to stay in. But then you spend a couple of days and you have a bit more distance from it, and you're like, well, no one cares about the fact that I got up at that time. So
more to fool me, like.
Exactly. What, like, does it really matter, or does it enhance the story? And it's the same with a lot of things. You just kind of, you can become too close to them, to the point as well where you think, oh, it's no good, and then you show it to someone, they're like, this is brilliant, and then as soon, I find as well, as someone kind of says this is really interesting, then you can look at it in a completely different light as well, because you're not in that super negative headspace of, oh, it's awful, people are going to hate it, oh my God. You just start to panic.
I'm actually sort of the opposite. So if someone goes really good, and I go, what are you talking about?
You don't know anything.
No, your taste has gone down in my thing. But yeah, it's just funny, because a lot of times with the stuff because I work a lot with first time filmmakers, and they want to, and the reason they want to get involved with filmmaking is because, like, actually, a question I did have before I go down that road is, you're saying you went out and bought a camera. I know that you, when you were younger, you played around with cameras, but the stuff you're doing now, did you just go out and buy a camera? Had you been playing around with stuff before? Or? So,
like, when we were, like, I've 2 sisters, and when we were kids, like, we had like a whatever it was, what was the mini DV camera or something like that, and we used to always make these like stupid videos where we pretend we were like reporters, like at the Oscars, and you know, things that you do when you're kids.
Sure, when you're a kid.
When you're a kid at 29 years of age. But you know, we would have done all of that kind of stuff, and I was always interested in, it was probably photography mainly, and then you know, just by the very nature of like, you know, camera phones getting so much better and having all of that in your pocket, I became more interested in video. And then actually the big changing point for me with video came with, I bought a GoPro. I bought a GoPro Hero 4 Silver, which was back probably about 2015. And I don't know why actually I got this like real hankering to own a GoPro. I think
it's another YouTube video you came across.
I just thought like, oh, this is going to make me look so cool.
Yeah.
And I bought it, but I think the fact that the GoPro was so small and it was so portable and it was relatively easy to use, it just meant that I used it all the time. And I went on holidays with my mates. We did a kind of a road trip down the west coast of America, and the GoPro was brilliant because the great thing about a GoPro is it's so small, you can point it at anything and know that it's filming it, so you're able to film things but not miss out on the experience. So like we might be, you know, we were in Yosemite National Park and you're taking in everything around you, but like I had the GoPro film, but I didn't have my head stuck in the GoPro.
Yeah, you're not.
You know,
it's just going, and then you'll see what you get. I'm assuming, did this have the screen at the time?
It had the screen at the time.
But you just kind of leave it and see what you get.
Yeah, and it then meant that like I had all of this footage and I put together a video, and it was just a lovely thing to have. And from that point onwards, I kind of think I saw the value, even from a personal point of view, of like learning to shoot and to edit and to have something, even if it's just to have things for yourself, you know. And then it kind of just kept progressing from there, where I just got more and more interested in it, and you start to see things that other people are doing, going, oh, that's a cool edit, I like the way they shot that, and it just kind of spiraled from there.
Yeah, because when I say I work with a lot of first-time filmmakers, and the reason that they are so interested in filmmaking is because they might, like you're saying, they might have thought, yeah, I really want to make films, and then someone puts a camera in front of them and they go, nah, I couldn't tell you. But with a phone, they're like, well, I use it all the time, and they'll take a run at it. Do you know what I mean? And maybe they might it mightn't work for them, but a lot of people, like I know a guy, and he's after making a documentary because he took a run at it, and he had that kind of hankering to make something, and the phone was an accessible way for him to do it. But I'm in terms of like, I'm so lazy now in terms of workflow stuff, that like when you say GoPro, I'm thinking, well, I gotta take that card out of my GoPro, I gotta put it on my computer. So I tried to keep everything onto a single device, which is good and bad. At the moment it's okay, it's getting better.
It's getting way better.
But like, if you like, even for stuff like podcasts, I bought a massive mic, and I was great, but now I have to record it into my computer and take it off my computer, and I was like, I'll just do everything on my phone. But it's just interesting that like you just can go out. So when you went out after the GoPro, you went out and you bought a camera, and then you were just like, I'm going to teach myself this, or you just learn on the fly? So
luckily for me, I did a degree, and it was to try and get into doing radio, but it was called Creative Digital Media. It was an IT Tala, so part of it, like, it was a very practically based course, so we had to do a bit of video work, so I had a background in it in that sense. Now, it was never my focus in college, but I suppose I did have a bit of a background in it, but I'd never gone and made anything myself. So I decided, you know, I want to go and get a camera. It was around the time of my birthday, so, you know, you kind of say, oh, I'll buy myself something nice for my birthday. Yeah. So I bought a well, the other problem as well, I don't know if you have this, I decided I want to buy some form of a gadget, and I could spend months researching what one will I get, because there's so much choice now. And then you decide on what you want, and then it's like, where can I get it for the cheapest? Where's the best offer? Yeah. And you just, by the time it actually comes around to buying it, like, there's a newer version. Yeah, the version's gone. You're still looking at a PlayStation 2 and a PlayStation 4. And you're like, what? Yeah. So it took me ages to decide on what to buy. But in terms of what my budget was, I decided on a Panasonic Lumix G80 is the name of it, and it's still a great camera. And I loved it because, like, in terms of vlogging, you know, you've got the screen rotates around so you can see yourself in shot. You know, it's got onboard stabilization. You can plug a microphone into it. So for me, I was like, right, that's perfect. That'll do the job. And that was kind of that. Yeah, I just, as soon as I had the camera, I was like, right, okay, I need to start making stuff. And then you just start using it, and as you use it, you're like, well, okay, well, that didn't work, or this doesn't work, I'll know that in future, because it's probably better off just to roll up your sleeves. And because, like yourself, I studied film and everything, but I found that just by picking up my camera and diving straight into it, and stuff didn't work out, and stuff did work out, and I was like, well, next time I won't do that. But there's always a next time, do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's only a problem if there's no next time, and you're kind of like, but we get the odd time like transition year students come into us in RTE, and they ask, you know, questions about how did you get into this. And I honestly, and I mean this, I learned 98% of what I know in terms of video making by doing things myself and through YouTube.
Yeah.
Like, it's like a degree is a piece of paper. If you want to go and make these things, like, a degree is not what you need to do. If you just need to get
Yeah, I mean, like, there's a value to having the credential, but it a lot of people will be like, well, I have a degree and I've studied it, but have you made much stuff? No, not really.
Exactly.
And you're like,
it's, you need to go and make stuff, and that's how you learn, and that's how you improve your craft, like with anything, you know. And again, I'm such a Casey Neistat fanboy, but there's a Casey Neistat line in he's a video called "Do What You Can't." If you ever want to be inspired about making videos, it's the whole video is about like being a creator and how like we live in such an exciting time to be a creator. But there's a line in it, and he says, when you're a creator, all you need is a phone, an internet connection, and a good idea. And that's the truth of it. Like, you don't need a massive qualification. It doesn't matter if you understand, you know, what the aperture is on a camera or what ISO is, or it doesn't matter. Like, put it in full auto. I shoot in full auto most of the time, you know. And it's all about the idea. No one cares when they're watching it about what settings you had or whether you understand this. If you have a good idea, then that's all that matters.
I mean, regardless of what format you're in, because this is what we're always talking about with students, is like story. And I remember I did a discussion once, and that was a question people kept talking, because I'm dealing with phones, people kept talking about the limitations. Well, your phone can't do what your phone can't do. And we were in a panel and everyone just kept going, but what's your story about? And they were just talking about the text and specs. And then a lot of times, especially with filmmakers and stuff, they're like, you're not making a film for some other filmmaker, so you're making a film for an audience. And like, a filmmaker might go, well, you know, there's too much grain in that shot or whatever, but the audience isn't going to know. Like, they're just going to enjoy it as long as it's put together in an engaging start and middle and an end. And it's funny, and then it also depends a lot on where that stuff is being shown. But I mean, I think people have become more forgiving and more used to specific styles and stuff like that, and there's a charm to a kind of a rough and ready vibe to it that people kind of really enjoy. It's more real life. And
there's the context as well in terms of how you're viewing it. Like, you know, if you went to the cinema and you paid, you know, €15 for a ticket and it was shot on a phone and it looked, you know, only okay, you might be like, meh, all right, I probably would have expected more. But if you come across something in your Instagram feed, or if you're browsing YouTube, like, it hasn't cost you anything. There's no expectation there. Yeah. You know, you're kind of just there to kill a bit of time, maybe to get a bit of inspiration. So, like, people, exactly like when you say audiences are so much more forgiving, because even now the context in which we consume content, it's totally changed.
It's all, and that's what I find. And sometimes I come across these people and they're really, you know what I mean, they're like, they're testing a shot or something, and there's a lot to be said for like getting it right, but they're like, I was like, what are you doing? It's for a YouTube video. I was like, yeah, but like, you know what I mean, you're slaving over one thing for 4 hours. Do you know what I mean? And in the end, your audience isn't going to necessarily notice the level of attention you're giving it. Do you know what I mean? Which is not to say you shouldn't give it attention, but not to the point where it becomes debilitating and prevents you from doing stuff because you're like, it's got to be just perfect. It's like, no, it's just got to be done, and you'll work out perfection as you go
over time. Yeah. It's something I still am really working on. Is like, you know, I might come to taking a photo or making a video and I'm going, oh no, like, it's not great, like, you know, I might give it another go. And you just kind of think to yourself, do you know what, like I'm even on the micro level of like an Instagram story, and if I don't like how it looks or how it's been delivered, I might be like, oh no, I need to do that again. And you're like, this thing is going to be gone in 24 hours. It doesn't matter.
Yeah,
you know.
So that's the thing. I never think about the time frame. It's going to be gone. Most people just be like, meh.
Exactly. Most people are just going to tap past it and not even watch it, you know. And that's the thing, is like, if you do it, and even if you look back and you're going, that could have been better, grand, you've learned what you needed to learn. Do you know?
Yeah,
but like,
true.
You've still entertained a couple of people with it, so great.
I get real stressed out doing it because I spend hours, because I'm at this thing, well, I don't really like talking too much on camera. I'm trying to get better at it, but when I do, I'm like, right, well, I got to subtitle these, and then I got to go in subtitle, then I got to go do all the subtitles, and then I'm like, what are you doing? And then I start adding in edits and cuts, and you're like, it's gonna be gone. Yeah. What are you doing? Like 4 hours later, like.
The one thing I will say about subtitling movies is, like, we have landed on the moon, yet we can't create a piece of software that makes it easy to subtitle videos. It is the most time consuming.
It doesn't make sense, because I could do it on my phone in like 5 minutes. I can go in and I can edit. There's a really good app for iOS called Mixed Caption, right? You go in, you can edit really fast. But I'm doing work for a person at the moment, and I have to do different languages subtitles. And I was like, surely I can just, and they're like, nope.
Yep.
And then you can like, you can, and there's this cumbersome way you can take the files off YouTube and you can dump them up. It doesn't look right. So you actually have to copy and paste line by line into a video, and you're like,
Premiere Pro, like, if you're listening,
Yeah.
For God's sake, sort it out, like, you know. And I know there's other ways of there's something called this very boring, like closed captions and open captions and stuff like that. But like they look crap. So like, if you
that's
want
what you
something
end
that
up with, this weird kind of line that moves up one at a time. It's very hard to read. So if you want it done traditionally, and I couldn't believe it because I was working with an editor and I was like, surely we're on the internet for ages. Like, no, you still have to copy and paste it. I can order a latte from my kettle across the room or whatever, you know what I mean? But I still have to get copy and paste stuff in. It's just bizarre. But and it's something that everybody needs as well, because, you know, as I said, people are screening through stuff and you're trying to get people's attention. So subtitles, I think, is really important. But I do it a lot on my phone, but I slave over it.
Yes.
For disposable content, essentially.
Exactly. It's just, and I suppose again, and it's all part of the learning process, and you start to realise like what's worth putting the time into and what's not. You know, look, if you had all the time in the world, of course everyone would want their stuff to be perfect, but we don't all have the time, all the time in the world, and you know, it doesn't matter. It's okay that it's not perfect.
It's grand. You give me a reason to finish that vlog I started 2 years ago at this stage. So just in terms of for Go Outside and Play, like that was an idea that came to you and said, hey, do you want to host this?
So when I did the vlog, and then in RTE they approached me about joining this area called The Lab. So The Lab is all about making short kind of online content for 18 to 34-year-olds. That's kind of, you know, in and around the target audience. And it's all experimental, and it's about trying new formats, and if they work, then great, then they might go on to do other things. And so I had joined The Lab, and in my own life anyway, I think we are like ridiculously lucky to live in a country like Ireland, because like we have some incredible scenery, and like most of the time, no matter where you are in the country, it's like a couple of hours drive away. Like I think of it in the context of like someone who lives in the absolute, you know, back arse of the States, let's say, and for them to go and see the sea, they might have to drive like for a day or two. Whereas like with us, we could like go and climb Crowpatrick in the morning and swim like in Dunleary in the evening.
It's funny though, because it's all relative in the sense that you're like, do you want to go down and climb Crowpatrick? It's like, oh, it's 2.5 hours away.
Yeah,
that's miles. And then like I lived in Canada before, and guys were commuting 3.5 hours to work. Yeah, so it's all relative to scale. But you're like, geez, I would love to, but I'm so busy. Like,
I'm just so much. I have to finish writing these captions in this video. But that was my thing. I love kind of the outdoors and taking pictures of the outdoors and all that. So I kind of from that said, we really should do like a series kind of showing off how great Ireland is. And that was like, I purposely wanted it to be a super simple format, which is like, here's a place that's worth going to see, you should really go and see it. Yeah. And it was pretty much showing off these places in the context of, you know, you've all of these accounts like that share these incredible photos of places on Instagram, and it was kind of in the context of that. I was like, okay, well, if you think that looks cool, well, go and see it. And the other thing that was important to us, and part of what we do in the Lab and RTE, is kind of showing as well how like production models are completely changing. So like, you know, traditionally to make TV would have had massive crews, big budgets, whereas we decided, no, you know, like we're going to do this like really scaled down. So I mean, it was myself, a really talented cameraman called Gar Cleary, who did most of the shooting of everything really, and then we had another guy, Sam, who kind of just helped, like, you know, carrying around, you know, tripods, and he was just there kind of just to give a hand with whatever. And that was it. It was three of us made the thing.
Who was doing the drone stuff?
Gar.
Okay, yeah.
Gar did everything. He was unbelievable. But you know, that was kind of that. And look, they're 6, you know, minutes long each, you know. So obviously if you wanted to do something that was 30, 40 minutes long, yeah, of course you'd need more people. But it just showed that, like, it's completely changing. The game has completely changed.
And how long was that to shoot each one? Like, were you
a day, like, for each one? And that included, like, you know, climbing up the mountains. We kind of shot it as we went along. Like, that was
like, you knew the route you were going on, sort of stuff, and then you just kind of pieced it together. And
we pieced it together, and we kind of had, like, we'd obviously done our research when we went to places, so we knew, like, say for example, with we went to a place called Three Castle Head in West Cork, so we knew the history behind it. So we knew, like, right, okay, we're going to have to shoot a piece where we're talking about the history and all of that. But it was a case of, we got out of the car and was like, right, let's start walking, and then Gar would be like, right, Carl, let's do this bit now here. And
because I remember specifically when, I don't know which one it is, where you walk through someone's field to get to
that was
a thing,
Three Castle Head,
and you got to pay the money and thing, and then you have a shot of the box. And I was like, well, I mean, did they decide halfway through the field that you said that line and then you got to go back and get a shot of the box, or was it something that you thought in advance of and just say?
That's kind of the beauty of people who know how to shoot and to edit, because you're always thinking of the edit in your head. And again, with Gar, like, super talented guy, and he would shoot and edit all the time. So as soon as I'm talking about box, he's like, right, I need a shot of the box. And obviously as well, like, people who do this all the time, they know, even if they don't edit, they know what editors look for. And like, that's the thing as well, it's so quick. Like, that didn't delay us at all, but it was just a really quick thought. It's like, right, we need a shot of the box.
And that's from editing, and that's the value of editing your own stuff as well, is you learn straight away. Like, unless he was cursing you every time you said something, he's like, oh, go get a shot of that. And then there's this really nice cave just over this cliff, and he's like, no, it's great. And the show is really good, and it serves that purpose, because I live right next to Glenlock, and I remember I was watching my girlfriend, and she was like, well, that's not Glenlock. I was like, we walk that almost every Saturday. That is the same place.
We were really blessed when we recorded. We filmed that in April last year, and I do not know, but we had two of the most glorious weeks known to man, like, just to film it. Like, we're hoping to do a second series, and already I'm like, oh, there's no way we'll get that lucky with the weather, because Ireland, when the weather is good, is glorious. Like,
that's what we were saying. We were watching, we were just like, it's an amazing place, but you got to get that 2 to 3 day window where it's perfect and it looks incredible. Like, but no, that, because the show served that purpose, because that lake in Waterford I've seen on Instagram, and I thought, where is that lake? I want to go to that lake. And then I just went, like, kept on living my life. And then, you know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, amazing, for about 40, all the endorphins are flying. It's like, I gotta go there, and then it's moved on. Oh, a cat. But like, that show really, really took that and said, well, now I want to go. And we were having discussions, because you get to see how narrow one man's path is in Donegal. You get to see how narrow that is, and I was like, well, now I have to do that.
Oh my god,
the photos don't do that justice. A video of it is,
it absolutely, the photos don't do justice, because what happened was, when we were researching the show, we were going to Slieve League, and you're obviously always looking for, like, you know, what would be an interesting angle, or what would be an interesting story to tell when we get here. And we saw this thing, One Man's Pass, and we thought, this is class, this looks unbelievable from the photos, and it looked really dramatic, and, you know, it was going to be amazing. And then it came to, like, we walked all the way up, and then because there's no signs for it, and we realised quite quickly why there's no signs, because you shouldn't be going
just
there,
that skull
basically.
and crossbones. You're like, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Oh my god. And we got there, and I had walked up, and Gar, the cameraman, was further down kind of filming, and I got to the bottom of it, and it was one of these moments where you're having this internal dialogue, and I was like, okay, well, one, this is absolutely insane, because to the left was a drop of like 600 odd meters, to the right was a drop of like maybe 100 meters, so you're kind of going, right, well, if I'm going, I hope I go to the right.
Come on.
But then in my head I was kind of thinking, it's just to describe it, it's like this kind of rocky ridge that, like, if it wasn't so high up, of course would be very easy to walk over, but you're very high up. And I had this thought in my head of, well, if I'm this scared now, if I start this and then I absolutely cack myself halfway, there's like no turning back, I'll be frozen. And I was like, they're going to literally have to call the Coast Guard to winch me off the thing. And then again, having RTE attached to that was like, not a good look. You know,
the headline there, Carl Mullan,
you know,
dragged from One Man's Pass.
So I just was like, do you know what? I actually have no shame in backing out of this, because it was terrifying, and it was like, it's dangerous. Like, it is dangerous.
Off the strength of that, I'm in Donegal in 3 weeks' time or something, and we're going to do it off the strength of the show, because we watched and we're like, we have to do that. We're down there, we have to, like.
Well, I love to see when you get, because it is one of those incredible places. But like, if you manage to do it, you're
I'm going to do it. I'm going to bring a
me.
load of nappies, so I should be fine. And I'm going to try and fly a drone and videotape myself at the same time on time.
That was actually the funny thing, because I was at the bottom of, and even at the bottom of One Man's Pass is terrifying. And I was so scared, right? If you actually look really closely at the footage, you'll see I've hooked my foot underneath a rock, because I was like, if a gust of wind comes, I want some form of leverage to stop me going over the side. But then the problem was, and you see it in the episode, I say to the lads, I'm like, I'm too scared, I can't do it. But then Gar was like, alright, will you just wait there? I just need to get some shots with the drone.
So you have to kind of hang out and wait
there's no such thing as like quickly getting anything with a drone. Like, drones take time. So I was like 10 minutes there with like Gar going meow, with the drone taking the shots. It was like, Gar, please, can we like just, have we got enough yet? Like, you know, oh God, I've never been more glad to get to the bottom of something.
Well, you'll have to do more now in a couple of weeks' time. Whenever you start up season 2, you can find more death-defying places to go. But yeah, no, that's perfect. Thanks so much for kind of chatting to me, and I'm really interested. Actually, I have one more thing before you. You recently got a drone. because I was going to buy a drone. And do you recommend buying a drone?
I actually, funnily enough, only yesterday, my girlfriend doesn't even know this yet, just bought a new drone. So
this whole room is full of drones.
We're going, I've bought multiple drones. We're going on a trip to Norway. I'm turning 30 next week, and so for my birthday she's bought us a trip to Norway because I always wanted to go to Norway. So of course we're going to Norway, so I need a new drone to go to Norway. So I have a Mavic Air, DJI Mavic Air, and I've kind of upgraded. I wanted something with a bigger sensor that I can do a bit more work on post production wise. So I've got a Mavic 2 Pro is the drone I'm after getting. But like I say to people, we have flying cameras. It's outrageous.
I saw a picture of one yesterday, and it looked like a DeLorean from Back to the Future 2, and it had all the blades underneath it, and I was like, this is incredible.
It's unbelievable. And like, you know, it is, look, you know, a couple of £100 it's still a lot of money, but relatively speaking, I mean, the fact that, like, again, and don't get me wrong, there's lots of other drone brands out there, but the likes of DJI, like, you've got the new Mavic Mini, and it's like £400, and the footage out of it is insane.
Incredible. Yeah, I know. I see the value. The two things that I see the value in having are a drone and an not necessarily an InShot 360.
Yeah,
because the reason I love that is because I always forget when I'm working. I always forget to take video, but it's like having your own videographer with you everywhere you go. You don't have. It's like you were talking about earlier on with the GoPro. You don't have to think about it. You just put it down, and you can edit this incredible footage out of it. It's so easy to edit. Yeah, that. It's anywhere you can remove your thought process from what you're shooting, and then be able to still get incredible footage,
and to focus on the story,
and then to be able to come back and be able to edit that without having to kind of set stuff up. Because I'd say your girlfriend's head's melted when you're like, okay, we got to stop here, I got to shoot this.
And like that's the one thing I will say is, like, you know, when brands are trying to sell you these things like a drone, it's like, oh, just take it out of your pocket and it flies out of your hand.
Like,
no, it doesn't. It's like, what happens is you take it out of your bag, you unfold the legs, then you take your phone out and you hook it up to the remote controller, and then it won't hook up to the drone, and you're going, what the hell is going on? You take the battery out, and then you put it back in, and then eventually it hooks up, and then you have to take off, and then you fly it for, like, you know, 15-20 minutes until the battery goes. And you know, it's not this like incredibly seamless process. You have to, like, and you know, that's one thing particularly with drones that I say to people is, like, you have to put time aside to fly the drone. Yeah,
you're going out specifically to do it. You're not just going to be like, well, I'm walking the dog and I'll just fly my drone in the background.
Exactly.
Like, no.
And the other thing as well is, like, you do also with drones, like, you have to be conscious as well of where you are and where you're flying, because like obviously don't be an idiot and fly a drone like in a place that you really shouldn't be flying it. But like I even as well say with, like, flying the drone, I actually don't like flying the drone when anyone else is around, because like I kind of get why people might be a bit like,
you're a bit like, I'm walking over here and you're videotaping, and it's like a surveillance vibe to it, so it's better off when there's no one around.
And they're noisy, and like they're not as noisy as they used to be. But exactly, that's why, like, if I'm out and there's no one really around, I'm like, cool, I'll fly the drone. But like, if I was around and there was loads of people, like, I'm more than happy as well. You can still take your phone out and take some class pictures, or do something. Like, you know, you don't have to be dependent on one piece of technology at any given time, you know.
But sure, I've seen the drone stuff you've flown out by Poolbeg, isn't it? The thing. I mean, that's out over the sea. It looks great. That's a very picturesque thing, especially when you're coming back towards the city and you've got the sun in the background and stuff like that. It's a great location.
Poolbeg is one of the most underrated places.
Yeah,
in Dublin.
it is. People are always like, let's go out to Dunleary Harbour. I was like, what?
Yeah, Poolbeg is class. Yeah,
and it's nice during winter. There's a guy there and he sells like coffees and things like that, and you can just do the walk and come back. Like, so we were not sponsored by Poolbeg for this. Both just wearing Poolbeg t-shirts.
Visit Poolbeg. But no, like, that's definitely for me. I just think, you know, we are. Look, I'm a total nerd when it comes to this thing, but like, I think we're incredibly lucky that, like, we have the technology now, like, in our hands, like, in our pockets, to go and make this stuff. So like, if you have an idea, you can just take the phone out and make it, and like, edit it on the phone and share it from the phone, and
that's the thing, sharing it. Before, you would have made something and then you'd be like, well, there's such a process to get it, to show it to people. Now you can show it to people, and if people don't like it or no, you get any traction, try again. Keep trying.
And that's it. And like, don't always think of, like, as soon as someone, and people do it in work all the time, like, oh yeah, we should make this, like, you know, let's make this go viral. It's like, that is
you've lost.
Work that way. It just doesn't. Sometimes things take off, sometimes they don't, and like, it's not a measure of success. Yeah. If something doesn't take off, like, there's loads of like things that I don't even understand, like algorithms. Like, loads of people don't even see what you're putting up because the algorithm has it the odds stacked against you. But that's fine. If people don't see it, it doesn't take off. It doesn't mean that it's a worthless thing or you shouldn't do it.
And again, you're really only inevitably end up talking to a really small pool of people. Like your close friends, you're surrounded, people think that. And if those people are giving you engagement, if someone says come back, if one person for me comes back and says I liked your thing, I'm like, done, job done. Because I had fun making it, I learned something, and somebody saw it, and they're the three things I'm trying to tick off. So
and that's the thing. I think anytime I go and make something, you know, that's what I try and get out of it as well. And that's why, like, I want to bring back a new season of doing my own vlog, purely because, again, like we were starting off with talking about like planning. I'm like, right, I need to do it where like I actually have a solid plan in my head of like what's my start, middle and end, how am I going to shoot it, and how can I be as efficient as possible about making this, so that like if I streamline that process, it means then I'm more likely to make the stuff again.
Exactly. You have a format you can fit into, and you're not just kind of like looking at the whole pieces, all the pieces, and trying to drag it together. You know, I know exactly what I'm doing. And I suppose that comes from kind of trial and error and figuring it out. Exactly.
And anyone who's thinking of starting out, there's nothing wrong with taking your camera out and starting to film loads of things and trying to piece it together, because again, you're learning something. But then over time, just start thinking to yourself, okay, how do I make this in a more efficient process, and how do I tell a better story? Yeah,
it's funny because you could either have no structure and learn structure, or you can be someone who has too much structure and doesn't really get off the starting line. So it's trying to find out what works for you, in the sense that you just want to go out and film a lot of stuff, and then you'll learn that structure as you go.
And it's a real fine balance, because like, I mean, that's to me the beauty of online content, is it doesn't have the structure that like television has. Of course television is very heavily structured, it is what it is, but like online content actually is so authentic because it only has a certain level of structure. There's that flexibility for a story to go in a completely different direction, and that's brilliant, because people love that. If you can surprise people, they love it.
And then there's so much out there that you really got to think outside the box and how to surprise people as well. But then again, you know, there's a creativity that comes with having very little resources and using what's around you. And then it's about finding your voice and what suits you, because a lot of times you'll look at someone and go, I really want to do what they do, but in actual fact, you're better off, you're more likely to do it if you can find what's comfortable for you to do it, what suits you, rather than trying to emulate something else. If you want to take elements of it and add it to your thing, but it's finding your voice, and then once you've had that, it just becomes a joy to do.
And that's it. Everyone will, like, you know, if you look at my first few videos, again, Casey Neistat fanboy, but like the editing style is very Casey Neistat, like, but to me it's like, exactly, that was like the building block, and then from there, that's where you start to find, like, you know what, like, I can't really do that very well, but I'm better when I'm, you know, doing this. And then you start to kind of realize, right, okay, that's...
You start playing to your strengths almost, and then you're not emulating something. Because again, if you're holding it up to that the whole time as well, you're like, you'll never be good enough.
Yeah.
In your own mind, you'll never be good enough. But if you can find something that works for you,
it'll take the joy out of it as well.
Yeah.
Comparison is the thief of joy. That's a great one that I heard before, because as soon as you start comparing yourself to someone else, you take all the joy out of it, you know? So like, you know, it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people. I still do it all the time, don't get me wrong, we all do it. But as soon as you kind of start, you really try and pull yourself out of it and say, no matter what it is, in any form of life, or whether it's to do with a piece of content that you've made, if you stop comparing yourself to what someone else has done, who, like, you know, probably has more resources, more time, you know, they're not comparable.
Who is also probably comparing themselves to someone else anyway, so everybody's doing it. You know? There's one person sitting around who started it all, and they're like, I am brilliant.
Exactly, yeah.
But no, that's a great note to leave it on. So thanks so much for that, and thanks for chatting to me.
No problem.
This is a great chat. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Cool. Well, that was it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that. If you want to check out more of Carl's stuff, you can check him on his YouTube channel, and you can also find it on his Instagram TV. Go Outside and Play, as we mentioned, is an incredible show. It's on the RTE Real Player at the moment. Bite-sized episodes of 5 minutes long, incredibly well shot, with different kind of locations from around Ireland that you may or may not have known existed, but will definitely want to visit after you watch the show. You can find Go Outside and Play on the RTE Real Player. I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you enjoyed the chat as much as I did. Thanks, and I'll catch you next episode.